Greetings. My name is Michael Miller. This is a Michael Miller trademark training video live on YouTube. Meant for you because you're watching. Thank you, of course. And for Michael Miller Pilates licensed affiliates. And for the Core New Core. Anyone interested in Pilates, anyone interested in surviving as a Pilates instructor, and because that's key in terms of a point of view, and it's been consistent for a long time now that I'm broadcasting what I can from my point of view to share it with you to help you survive as a Pilates instructor. And if along the way you become familiar with core new tension, then to whatever extent what we cover about core new tension is up to you to employ and use in Pilates or whatever modality you take it to. Because core new tension is a biomechanical thing. And MMP is 1 out of 10,000 views of Pilates. It's an ideal view, and it's a view based on 3 things in Joe's book. Taking the general principles into account, which it does nicely, to get to an ideal within Joe's original work. So, today is June 21st, and at 4:07 this morning, there was the summer solstice. That's where as far as I understand it, the tilt of the Earth reaches its maximum tilt toward the sun, and now it starts tilting back away from the sun. Like going into a curve and out of a curve and on a really grand scale. And the reason that matters for survival, because we're talking about survival, is my example with the Incas and Machu Picchu and observing when the shadow didn't grow anymore in that direction as an indication of timing for when to plant the crops. The Inca civilization was pretty big, and timing mattered a lot, and observation was critical to the survival, because if you weren't looking for it, how would you ever notice? Okay, so observation. At 4:07, the park was not open yet, so Eagle's Nest wasn't open yet, and McDonald's right at the base of the mountain was. It was quite an experience to be driving through Boulder at 4 o'clock in the morning, and nice to have a place to get a cup of coffee and a muffin, an egg muffin. And what made that nice was having it be the plan and having the plan come out according to plan. Like Hannibal from the A-Team used to say, I love it when a plan comes together. And so it was great that the plan came together on that front. And then the drive up and back to the Lost Gulch Overlook, I ended up with the most amazing company that experienced and enjoyed the sunrise in their own way and allowed me to enjoy it in mine. And see if we're talking about observing. See, what is all this about? I just came from a studio where I got to teach and talk about body, mind, and spirit, and that within the view of Michael Miller-Pilates, spirit is the observer, or observing. So it's about being in your body. It's about the thinking that goes on in you as a human being, and it's about your capacity to observe as well. So there's thinking and there's observing. And even though there wasn't much observing other than the time at which it turned to 4:07, and taking a picture, releasing balloons, which is a long time tradition for me and the convention, it was much calmer weather, but it was very dark and the rock outcropping can be very uncertain. So it's a relief that I show up alone, where I don't lead someone out onto or into a point of view that would be precarious to get to. There's benches right there as well. So I was going to take a picture of a bench, but then I heard people come from behind, and it ended up being a foursome, as I say, that took in the experience in their own way, and I took it in my own way, and the observation, blah, 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 the observation of the sunrise, there was a lot to observe because it happened so fast. The stages of the sun rising, and so you could feel that not only in how fast it happened, but in the temperature change and in the conversation level of the birds, changed over the course of the sunrise. I have audio on that, so I may come out with that. All right, so in Michael Miller-Pilates, spirit is a capacity, just like body is a capacity, and mind is a capacity, and the instructor survives by making a complete coordination an experience of the complete coordination of those three capacities. So number 2 out of 8, sorry, but number 2 is about surviving the franchise. Surviving the franchise. And if you just take what the franchise says about numbers, it's possible not to see how the big money behind the franchise will influence what Pilates is taught as to teachers, and from teachers then out to clientele, right? And I've said that before because it's only natural that big money will look for a maximization of profit, and so what works best for their business model will be what's an influence on the overall 10,000 views of Pilates. And to the extent that, so we're talking about surviving the franchise, to the extent that the franchise will be inhaling internally what they will want their teachers to be capable of doing. My understanding or my point of view is that the tsunami of Pilates passion, and because of the passion, money, and because of the money, the attraction of those who want to make money on as large a scale as possible, in doing so will influence how Pilates is understood and presented. And especially if you've been teaching Pilates or have an income stream that's relevant to Pilates, when you see different levels of money coming into things and different levels of money coming into things, and how all along it's continued to influence what Pilates is being perceived as, and then what in turn it's being projected as. The point about surviving the franchise is that which is really sad and tragic or ironic, but the franchise, I don't think, will ever be able to go to where Pilates, the essence of Pilates, most truly exists. And that by that I mean spirit, which we've been talking about, insofar as trying to point to or teaching that you're more than your mind, and that the observer within you has to be present to get the complete coordination of those three capacities. To me, that's more depth than the breadth of the franchise will be able to go to. And I can be completely wrong on this, but all I'm trying to do is offer you a view, my view, about how to survive as a Pilates instructor, and that as bigger and bigger levels of money come into the arena, it's an ongoing continuation process. I think it's hard to survive as a Pilates instructor and not be drawn into becoming a physical therapist. I think it's all too easy to be drawn or to draw Pilates into your own world and make it what you want, like dance or aerobics or belts or bonds, whatever. So I guess the good news is the way to survive the franchise is to go where the franchise can't go, and that's closer to the essence of what it is. It's what I would recommend. And so your understanding of its ideal allows you to instruct toward that real. So you go from ideal to real. And you go there by being cutting edge in terms of core new tension and biodynamics that isn't even on the chart yet of the textbooks, right? And the other thing about how do you survive the franchise is to go to why. Because the why of Pilates for what it is, knowing why, At least understanding it in your own right, no matter who, if you're teaching for the franchise or not, empowers you in your understanding of why it is what it is. And to the extent that you understand why it is what it is and what the target is as an experience and how to hit that target and have it all be about fun at its most, at the fountainhead of what Joe's method is all about and delivers or offers as an opportunity to a participant. And my point is that knowing about the idea and knowing about core new tension is biodynamics, right? Body mechanics. And the idea is MMP. And that there is an ideal within Joe's original work, and that that ideal speaks for itself right out of Joe's book, based on 3 things in Joe's book. You know all that. So let's go to number 3. And this really goes back to, maybe like this. Yeah, goes back to yesterday. Because I worked out and I took notes, but I didn't broadcast. And number 3 is that familiar makes magic. And that's as close to a 3-word aphorism or statement as I can make. Familiar makes magic. And so when someone wants to go to depth, that before you can get to any substantial depth, I don't think, just an opinion, excuse me, you have to allow for familiarity. You have to develop familiarity in order to take it deeper. Make it more meaningful. Do it with more control. The aspect of what's familiar is a magic, in my point of view, for developing a control for your effort. Master your springs. Too many things. Familiar makes magic. So in the course of 1 hour or 1 session with a client, if you do a sequence from Joe or reflects Joe 3 times, so that you go through the sequence the 3rd time within that 1 hour, I think there's magic in building familiar. And to the extent that you're aware of just how magic that is as an instructor, you'll have confidence in being repetitive and not worrying about being boring and needing to have it always be new. If it's always new, there's no familiar. And familiar allows you to go deeper. And deeper is where the franchise, at least I don't think, can advertise. Instructors working there, of course, can go there if they want, but it's a... Number four. The title is that's biology accomplishing the physics. And yes, by that I'm referring to movement. That's biology accomplishing the physics. Because the biology exists within the physics, and there's a sophisticated symphony of rotational interaction going on within the body to achieve the movement that it does, that you do. The body can achieve rotational dynamic within itself, and it uses that, and it counterbalances that rotational capacity into a tension I have named core new tension because nobody else named it before me. So I claim responsibility and credit and admit that that comes from my pursuit of understanding Pilates and going from the core as a grip, right? Control, grip, to the fact of the physics of it beyond just the imagination as it being so. And so number 4 is about surviving as a Pilates instructor, and through the depth of how you understand Pilates, knowing how the biology is accomplishing the physics that it needs to achieve the control that it's after. Number 5. Joe's method is not make-believe. That means that you can't just study Pilates and make believe it's whatever you want. At least so far as you can't say you're teaching Joe's method and make up whatever you want. Now, many do, thousands of do, and the ideal within Joe's work supports all of the 10,000 views that are made of it. And that's just my opinion. And that there is an ideal is just one of those views. But it's a view that becomes an easy point of reference as a Pilates instructor when you're being exposed to new material, learning new things, trying to make sense of more stuff. To the extent that you understand MMP, which goes along with knowing that Joe's method is not make-believe, to the extent you know that Joe's method is something very, very real and very specific, and definitely makes a point on his own and in making that point, everything that comes off of that point is derivative of his work, which I think he accomplished a complete statement just from what there is in his book, based on the MMP theory of the ideal being in there, the 3 facts within Joe's book, and taking, of course, into account the principles in Freeman and Eisen's book, and perhaps others you might want to add or not, but all the principles are an extraction from or exude from the exertion of the ideal. My imagery, but... So number 6. Body, mind, and spirit, regardless of gender. Gender doesn't matter. It's the 3 capacities of body, mind, and spirit that every human being, regardless of gender, have capacities in. And for the Pilates instructor to survive, at least from my point of view, I'm looking at aiming for the experience of complete coordination of body, mind, and spirit as a state of being in the body in the moment of the doing. And all of that happens before any distinction of gender. And for gender to either gender, any gender as any kind of a filter or template or interpretation of Pilates is so after the fact of what Pilates, of the point that Pilates makes before you ever get to gender. Okay? It's human beings' capacity of regardless of gender, that makes the point, Joe makes the point of combining capacities in the human being, and in that regard, gender doesn't matter. Gender is irrelevant. You can step in and make a bunch of assertions one way or another, or assumptions, or participate in stereotypes that really are a distraction from having a handle on a point of view that is complete in and of itself before gender ever enters Number seven. So non-local and supraluminal are two terms that come out of physics, and one is about feeling something far away or having something change at a distance, spooky action at a distance. And the supraluminal is about that change can happen or happens faster than the speed of light. And these are the contradictory, it would seem, indications of our experience of the world. It's all local, and it only happens within the speed of light. But non-local and supraluminal, Nick Herbert, quantum reality, I wouldn't suggest you buy it. It's very dry. Well, not dry. It's eight views of our best take on reality. And observing is critical and key to our interpretation of reality, or what we can make of it, or what we do make of it. Joseph Pilates, I wish were here, and I hope if he already is aware of all this, I know how I think I would be sharing with him if he just showed up, how much this point of view places his sequence, his method, at the cutting edge of a human being's conditioning Of course, that means to survive. All right. Number 8. My course on udemy.com, udemy.com, called How to Survive as a Pilates Instructor, is meant to help you learn how to go into another Pilates studio and explain core new tension and michaelmillerpilates. Because in the midst of the Pilates tsunami of passion, if all you have is aristocracy, then you're clinging to the hope that the tsunami will not overwhelm the aristocracy and make of Pilates what it chooses or what comes out of the tsunami. So the higher ground for me is in the ideal. And the best way I can help you survive as a Pilates instructor, I talk about every day in these broadcasts, and to formalize what to know from what I talk about in a way that would help you make money by going and explaining to other Pilates studios a point of view of Pilates that may help them survive the Pilates franchise. And this may end up just being that the franchise moves in and there are no private studios anymore, but I have a hard time thinking that's the case. And I think I could put a pretty good argument out there that if you understood a point of view about why it is what it is, how empowering that is as an instructor, and to be out there with something new in the midst of being swallowed up by a tsunami of passion and money and all of that. It may not matter because most of the Pilates instructor I've known all my life just live within who they are as a Pilates instructor or based on their internal view of that. And only work with what is comfortable for them to pass on, which works with their simulation of what it is. So my course is directed to studio owners or directors of training programs so that they can know about core nutrition and MMP before they hear about it from somebody else or their students are hearing about it somewhere else. Especially in light of the fact that you're probably not going to get the franchise involved in either CT or MMP. Because it's too specific of a view and it requires a deeper involvement with Pilates than I think a large franchise can go to. Maybe I'm wrong, we'll see. But certainly, if all I had was my connection to who my master teachers were, and that was my claim to legitimacy, and all of that's fine, and you teach within that, but that the world itself, Pilates, what Pilates is, regardless of what you make of it, even if it's just what it's perceived to be because it's nothing in and of itself, you got to remember that one. Nothing in and of itself. All right. I needed to free up space in order to broadcast on YouTube. And now I'm hoping I still have space to make enough room to do a quick review of all this on Facebook Live. Reviewing or whatever. Observation. My course has 5 statements in it. 3 from Joe, 2 from me, 3 from me. Definitions. So there's 2 definitions from Joe and his sequence, which isn't a definition, it's his sequence. So his definition, his promise, and his sequence from his book. I currently have 2 versions of that in English, only one's out there now, and I picked up another version in Russian, of all languages, but that's coming. And the point being that if you know the definitions and can explain them, that's the basis for making a presentation about those 2 subjects, CT and MMP. And if the presentation is an abomination and it causes horror and they don't want to hear anything about it, well then at least you were able to give them an introduction to what else is out there, even if they don't want anything to do with it. And then, of course, if it makes sense to your audience, or maybe even just one member of your audience, they'll want to know more, and they'll want to know, or they'll want to get closer to having the ability to deliver the experience that you're talking about. Life can't live forever. And in watching a sunrise, you experience the passage of time, and it brings you closer to that understanding. Read between the lines. Surviving as a Pilates instructor and how to make money. Bringing other instructors or other studios, helping them see or understand how the ideal and core intention reinforces what they already know. In a way that a big franchise isn't likely to be delivering through their franchise. The course is usually on sale for around 10 or 11 bucks. And you have to give up an email address, but that's what you do when you become a student on Udemy. There's a question and answer arena or area for interaction, and it's private to students that are signed up for that course, at least as far as I understand. So I encourage you to check it out. And if you speak another language besides English and want to make recordings of the definitions that are in the course, that's how I'm hoping to expand the course and add value. More languages and more people saying that are pointing to the same thing or showing some level of familiarity with the definitions. See behind the curtain. And definitely it seems that the curtain that's being presented to the public at large is changing. And you want to see behind what's changing it and how you and how you relate to how the overall curtain is changing, and what you have to offer and know, and your ability to deliver as an instructor, an experience that takes you way beyond what you might or might not get in some other venue by some other instructor, and might or might not. Ask for the world. Charge a lot of money. It's worth its weight in gold to introduce someone to the ideal that exists within Joe's work. That's just my opinion, but if you have a lot of money going through your studio and you wonder how you're going to keep that income stream happening, one way to do that is to move horizontally and offer more entertainment or more stuff to add to Pilates, which happens a lot, I think. And yet, the essence of Pilates, the depth of what Pilates is, I think is where we all want to stay rooted, so that the fountainhead that feeds that root comes through us. Pardon the metaphor, but then you might even want to become a licensed, certified presenter of that material, so that you could use my trademark and stand out even more than you already knowing what it is and having the confidence to deliver the information to any studio that you're willing to present it to or to give it away. The key thing is, if you're a studio owner or the director of a program, do you want to be the one that brings this to your students, or do you want your students to bring it to you? Because in my opinion, the ideal that is out there is from the pressure of the tsunami of Pilates passion. The ideal will keep you above the wave, and there will be pressure on the point of view because it is keeping you above the wave and not being swept away or being made irrelevant. So know where the twos and twos are adding up, and know your value and what it is you define yourself as and how you charge for that. And you can be more than, not more than, but other than a Pilates instructor. You could also be a presenter, and just having the course and trying to present the information on the course is a way to make money. So direct your thinking. And don't be distracted, but know that to the extent that you look for an ideal within Joe's work, it's there to reinforce whatever else you want to make of it. Geist.